Welcome to the training for faculty supervisors for the Clinical Mental Health Program at Texas A&M University, Central Texas. And this is for students who are completing field experience in either the practicum or internship classes. Some CACREP standards related to fieldwork. All students who are enrolled in practicum internship should have professional counseling liability insurance coverage, and they should be providing documentation of their coverage to you. It should be included in the binder you get at the beginning of the semester. If that's missing for a student from your binder, please make sure that they get a copy to you before they begin counting hours and seeing clients. Supervision of practicum and internship students should include program-appropriate audio-video recordings and/or live supervision of students' interactions with clients. And obviously during practicum, when they're in the clinic on campus, all sessions are recorded, audio-video recorded, and you also have the opportunity to observe live via the cameras that are in the rooms. If students are at off-site, it's expected that their site supervisors more often will be providing this live supervision, but we do request that they make available recordings of their work with clients for faculty review to determine that students are progressing appropriately. Most sites are hesitant to agree to video recordings, but often, if you can kind of assure them of confidentiality and the protections and the steps we take to protect confidentiality, they're comfortable with audio recordings. And we do have some consent forms specially prepared that spell out the protections that we use. Both formative and summative evaluations of the student's counseling performance and ability to integrate and apply knowledge are conducted as part of the student's practicum and internship. So typically you'll do a formative evaluation either at the beginning of the semester or at midterm when you've seen enough of the work to have some formative opinion, and at the end of term as well, a summative evaluation is expected. Students should have the opportunity to become familiar with a variety of professional activities and resources, including technological resources, during their practicum and internship. And of course, in the clinic, we provide them with experiences with both audio-visual materials, technology for recording sessions, as well as scheduling and clinic documentation technology in the form of titanium. During either the practicum or internship, so at some point in their fieldwork, students must lead or co-lead a counseling or psychoeducational group, which we run several groups in the clinic during practicum, and many, if not most, of our sites also will have opportunity for students to do some form of group work. Okay, in terms of supervisor qualifications, for faculty supervisors of students in the program, they need to have relevant experience, professional credentials, and counseling supervision training and experience. Site supervisors, if you want to make sure that the student is at an appropriate placement, and sometimes what happens is they'll be at a placement and then their supervisor will change. You know, somebody leaves, they go on maternity leave, they change jobs, and they say, oh, I have a new supervisor. And so you may need to verify that the new supervisor still meets the criteria that the original one met, because when they are first placed in a site, the practicum internship director will typically verify that the site supervisor is appropriate. But the site supervisor needs to have a minimum of a master's degree, preferably in counseling or related profession, relevant certifications and or licenses. So typically this means LPC, LMFT, LCSW, LP, not necessarily LPCS, LMFTS. If they have the extra supervisor qualification, that's obviously a bonus, but it's not a requirement so long as they have, can meet criteria number 5, relevant training in counseling supervision. They do need a minimum of 2 years of pertinent professional experience, as well as knowledge of the program's expectations, requirements, and evaluation procedures. And as I already said, of course, relevant training in counseling supervision. The program needs to be providing orientation, consultation, and professional development opportunities that are provided by the program faculty to site supervisors. The use of written supervision agreements to define the roles and responsibilities of the faculty supervisor, site supervisor, and student during practicum and internship. And so this is the supervision agreement, again, that is signed by the student, site supervisor, and faculty supervisor, and that also should be in your binder at the beginning of the semester. If it's not, check and make sure the student gets that document with all the appropriate signatures to you to be incorporated with their record. Additionally, if supervision is conducted by a site supervisor in consultation with counselor education program faculty, then the supervision agreement must detail the format and frequency of consultation to monitor student learning. So in some cases, part of the role of faculty supervisor can be met by a site supervisor if they're providing kind of a higher level of supervision than maybe most sites can provide. In that case, that's okay as long as the faculty supervisor is in regular consultation with that site supervisor, and that needs to be spelled out in a separate agreement. Okay, in terms of the different types of field work, the first semester is practicum. The primary placement for this first semester is in our on-campus clinic, the second floor of Aurora Hall, the Community Counseling Family Therapy Center. So at this location, every session is recorded, audio-visual recording. The appointments are scheduled, and all notes and clinical documentation is done via Titanium. Students are required to spend a minimum number of hours in the clinic at a set schedule recurring every week. The number of hours per week depends on the semester. Currently, if it's a long semester, the minimum is 5 hours of time to be in the clinic just for seeing clients. That doesn't count any supervision time. And in the summer, it's 8 hours. So a student may have, and those need to be minimum of 2-hour blocks. So, okay, I'm going to be there from 12 to 2 on Mondays and from 4 to 7 on Thursdays. And even if they don't have any clients on the schedule, when Monday starts, there's no clients for that week, they still need to be there in the clinic at their assigned times to standards, CACREP standards that apply to CACREP. Students are required to earn a minimum of 100 clock hours of practicum over a full academic term. And that must be done in a minimum of 10 weeks. So in the fall and spring, it's a 16-week term. The summer is a 10-week term. Of the 100 clock hours they get, at least 40 clock hours must be direct service with actual clients that contributes to the development of counseling skills. And again, they don't need to get all 40 of those hours in the clinic, but our goal is for them to be able to do so. Practicum students should have weekly interaction with supervisors that averages 1 hour per week of individual and or triadic supervision throughout the practicum by a counselor education program faculty member. At some point, if we have a doctoral program, they could have a student supervisor who's a doctoral student. We don't have that yet. And then the CACREP provides the option that a site supervisor who's working in consultation on a regular schedule with a counselor education program faculty member in accordance with the supervision agreement can also provide this 1 hour week of individual supervision. But typically in the clinic, that's not the case. Faculty provide that 1 hour a week of individual or triadic supervision for the clients that are seen in the clinic. If they have a secondary site, then that supervision would be provided by, obviously, the site supervisor, in addition to the hour a week of individual they're getting with faculty. In addition to the individual triadic supervision, Practicum students also participate in an average of 1.5 hours per week of group supervision on a regular schedule throughout Practicum. And this group supervision must be provided by a counselor education program faculty member. And in the future, if we have doctoral students, it can be done by that. So the group supervision must be done by faculty. Individual can be done off-site or by an off-site supervisor if in consultation with a faculty member. Moving on to internship. So this is completed after Practicum. So there are no excess hours from Practicum that roll over to internship, right? So students have earned their 40 direct contact hours, and then they see some more clients. They end up with, let's say, 50 direct contact hours. Fantastic. Those were all Practicum hours. They do not apply to hours needed for internship. Another question that sometimes comes up, students say, hey, I've got my 40 hours, there's 2 weeks left in the semester, can I stop seeing clients? The answer is no. In the clinic, you cannot stop seeing clients. If you're on internship at an external site, that is up to you to talk with your site supervisor and the director of that site regarding their needs and the needs of the clients. If the clients are no longer in need, you may be able to reduce your hours. You are expected to still attend supervision, but you may be able to reduce your hours once you've met the minimum hours. So again, no hours roll over from Practicum to internship. However, hours from one semester of internship do or can roll over to the next semester of internship. Because what needs to happen for internship is to complete a total number of hours, right? And you must do it in a minimum of 2 semesters. You can't cram all your hours into one semester. You still have to complete at least 2 semesters of internship after Practicum, so a minimum of 3 semesters of fieldwork altogether. Now, for internship, if a student is unable to complete all the required hours in those 2 semesters, they have the option of repeating internship a third time for a third semester. Students are responsible for procuring an external site. They can get advice and direction about sites and what determines the eligibility of a site by contacting their faculty and or the Practicum internship director. But again, ultimately, they are responsible for applying to and securing an external site once they're on internship. The group supervision that is provided during internship is provided in a classroom on campus. So even if they're working off-site somewhere, they're going to have group supervision provided by a faculty member back at the university. Standards tell us about the number of hours they're required to get. So it's a minimum of 600 clock hours of supervised counseling experience in roles and settings with clients relevant to their specialty area. And internship students must complete at least 240 clock hours of direct service. Okay, so that's over. If they're able to do it in 2 semesters, you figure, okay, that's 120 hours direct one semester, 120 hours direct the next semester. In terms of, but because hours can roll over, so you could do 100 hours one semester, 140 the next, right? But also, given that summer is a shorter semester, we recognize that they may not be able to even get 100 hours in the summer. So we've set minimum number of direct hours required for internship. And those minimums are a minimum of 90 direct contact hours in the long semester and a minimum of 60 direct contact hours in the summer semester. So if you get those minimum hours, that's 60, 90, 90, 3 consecutive semesters, will get you your 240. If a student wants to finish in 2 semesters, then obviously they should do more than those minimums. No minimums have been set for the indirect hours, but other than the total number of hours must ultimately add up to 600 hours of supervised counseling experience. Okay. Internship students must have weekly interaction with supervisors that averages 1 hour per week of individual and/or triadic supervision throughout the internship. And typically this is provided by the site supervisor, but can also, if need be supplemented by the counselor education program faculty. And so what we've written into our agreements is that site supervisors agree to provide a minimum of half of their supervision as individual or triadic, because they're required to provide an hour a week of supervision. Half of that could be group supervision, assuming they have multiple interns working with them. But at least half of it will be individual. So if they do that, then the faculty need to make up the other part of the missing individual supervision, so that students are getting 1 hour a week of individual or triadic supervision. Okay. In addition to that individual or triadic supervision, regardless of who provides that, site supervisors completely or a combination of site and faculty supervisors. In addition to that supervision, internship students must participate in an average of 1.5 hours per week of group supervision on a regular schedule throughout the internship, and this is provided by counselor education program faculty member. Okay. So the faculty are providing this supervision on campus. Okay, in terms of documentation of supervisees' clinical hours, we provide them with weekly hour logs where they specify how many hours of what type of activity they are completing. Faculty will sign logs related to supervision provided. So if you're supervising in the clinic, you're going to sign all their logs. And site supervisors will also sign logs verifying students' work outside the university. So if you're a faculty member supervising internship and the student is seeing clients at an external site only, the site supervisor will sign one set of logs verifying the work with clients and the supervision that site supervisor provided. The faculty will sign a separate set of logs that verifies the supervision provided. They won't be asked to verify that the student saw clients, obviously, because that's the site supervisor's responsibility. When reviewing weekly logs, and I recommend reviewing them every week, if not at least once a month, always check for anomalies. If a student has an excessive number of hours in a given category in a day, you might think they may have made an error. If they have 6 hours of any one thing in a day, you want to ask them, hey, was this an especially intense day where you did a lot of something? Especially if that's occurring regularly, they may have transposed some numbers or made some errors. In addition to the weekly logs, students will complete an end-of-semester summary sheet that totals their hours of direct and indirect contact. And they're going to need to generate a separate summary sheet for each site where hours were accrued. And they'll sign it, and as well, the supervisor will also sign it. So the site supervisor will sign the summary sheets for their work, and faculty supervisors will sign summary sheets for the work that they did. Okay, in terms of evaluating supervisees' clinical skills and dispositions, as we said before, in terms of both formative and summative evaluations, we do evaluations at minimum, at midterm, and end of term. And of course, there's always the ongoing evaluation of students and giving feedback, ongoing feedback, and extra levels of feedback when it's needed. The tool we're currently using is the Counselor Competencies Scale Revised, developed by Glenn Lambie. And this tool assesses counseling skills and therapeutic conditions, as well as counseling dispositions and behaviors. Each of these things is broken into a rubric where you rate the student for a category from 1, what they're doing is harmful or their disposition is harmful, to 5, they're exceeding expectations. And again, it's important to communicate clearly with students what your expectations are so that they will know how to meet them. When you complete these evaluations, the students will sign a copy and you'll sign a copy. And then to help us track and report student progress, you will be given a link where you can enter the student scores in Qualtrics so that we can keep track of how the program is doing, and also it's a way to form a database to track individual students' progress. Here's a look at that tool developed by Glenn Lambie with your counseling skills and therapeutic conditions. So nonverbals, encouragers, questions, different types of reflecting, paraphrasing, reflection of feelings, summarizing, the advanced reflection, confrontation, goal setting, focus of counseling, and facilitating the therapeutic environment. And again, it's important to go over this tool with students at the beginning of the semester so that they understand the expectations and what kind of things you'll be looking for. Dispositions as well, ethics, professional behavior, boundaries, knowledge of policy, record keeping, multicultural competence, emotional stability, motivation, openness to feedback, flexibility, and okay, in terms of supervision documentation tasks, things you need to do. At the beginning of the semester, you'll be given a notebook that should have your student's application materials, which has name, address, student ID, that sort of stuff, as well as information verifying that they're eligible to be in Practicum or internship. Proof of their liability insurance should be in there as well as their supervision agreement that was signed by their site supervisor. So if you would add your signature to that, verify all those pieces are there. If anything is missing, please alert the student that they need to get you that as soon as possible. During the semester, obviously, we'll be providing written feedback at midterm, and additionally else as needed if you have kind of significant concerns about a student's ability to perform clinically. It's best to document that and involve others if needed in remediation. Notes. Talking here two separate things. One, if you're in the clinic for Practicum, your students will be signing their clinical notes and sending them to you for review in Titanium, where you can review them, send them back for further edits, and then whenever you're satisfied with them electronically, sign them and save them to the client's file. And it's also a good idea as general practice to keep notes of how often and to whom you're providing supervision, just to be able to verify hours at the end of the semester, although we don't require any kind of formal documentation of that other than the students' hour logs, which you will, that's one of the things I have to add, during the semester you'll be signing their weekly hour logs. At the end of the semester, you'll again be providing kind of formal written summative feedback to students, and then you'll turn in that notebook that you were given at the beginning of the semester that had their application materials, and then to that you'll add their signed weekly hour logs and summary sheets with one summary sheet per site. I always advise students to make a copy for themselves, and so if they forgot to, if you're really feeling generous, maybe you make them a copy of their hours in case anything happens to their records. And then signed copies of any evaluations of the students and other evidence of evaluation of student work, again giving them copies as well. And then the electronic portfolios that they now have on their flash drives. And typically what will happen is if you can give that to the Practicum director or the program coordinator, and they can offload the electronic documents into a repository and then give the thumb drive back to you or to the student if the student is proceeding on to another semester of fieldwork experience. In terms of grading, it's a little different depending on which class they're in. For Practicum, it's a letter grade. And you need to indicate in your syllabus how the grade is determined. So what percentage of things skills and dispositions weigh, and in what percentage of the grade is determined by their portfolio. A minimum of B in Practicum is required to proceed to internship. Less than a B, they'll need to repeat Practicum, and if they earn less than a B in practicum, this also may indicate a need for remediation and triggering of a separate process. For internship, it becomes pass-fail. But again, you'll still need to indicate on syllabus how the grade is determined, what constitutes a passing performance, part of which obviously will be earning the minimum number of direct contact hours required for that semester, 90 in a long semester, 60 in the summer. And then if any area of a final evaluation from faculty is scored as harmful, a student does not pass. And that's true of practicum as well. If you have other questions about this or anything else, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can contact me, Dr. Sam Fiala, at my email, or Dr. Jeremy Berry, the program coordinator. And thank you for all you do.